So in this video I'm in Kyoto. Kyoto is a really cool city. It is the former capital of Japan and was the capital of Japan for a long time, I think around 800 years. And it really sticks to that identity. It has a lot of like traditional buildings and like cultural sites and all that, and they really focus in on the culture aspect of the city, which is really nice. But at the same time, as being like a big center of tradition, center of culture, it is still like a fully functioning modern city. If you like shopping, it's a great place. If you like culture, it's a great place. If you like history, it's a great place. I'm doing a voiceover here because the city is so quiet. Like Japanese cities, even the really busy ones, are like remarkably quiet for how many people are around. A lot of it I didn't feel comfortable filming. So I got a lot of footage of places that look really cool, but like no commentary to go with it. So here you are. I think Japanese cities sort of show you what's really silly about a lot of Western cities and the way we think about cities. Because like behind me you can sort of see at the subway station there's a lot of tall buildings. It's a very sort of urban area. But if you look in front of me, it very quickly becomes quiet suburbs. And what I've noticed with Kyoto is that there's a lot of these really quiet suburbs with the standalone houses, and a lot of them like in this very sort of like traditional old style, right next to these like subway stations that have like the major centers and big tall buildings and office blocks and everything. And if you get this really nice balance between, you know, beautiful suburbs filled with traditional houses and, you know, a walkable city with transportation where you can get everywhere. Like Kyoto, there's just trains everywhere. Like every block has a subway station. Look at that. So next time someone tells you that they don't want to live in a walkable city with public transportation, show them a Japanese city. Show them like a video like this where you can see like walkability does not mean, oh, I have to live in a box in the sky. So the Japanese cities are ridiculously quiet. Like, oh, here's a car. It's gonna make me sound too quiet. Ooh, motorbike. Ridiculously quiet. So I feel like I have to talk at a very low level to be able to, you know, not disturb everyone around here. But now I have to keep checking my camera if I can actually hear myself in the footage. But even right now I feel like I'm being really loud when I'm kind of keeping it down. Of course, then you hear Americans coming through and you can really hear them. And the other thing is, in like Japan, the zoning laws make it so you can basically build a house anywhere you want, right? So you got like these like multi-use buildings that'll have like several apartments in them next to like standalone houses. There's another apartment building there. There's some more like standalone houses down the street. You have all of these like mixed in together, so you have all of the options you could want. You have the ability to own a car and to drive, or if you don't want to, you can walk and take a train, right? And you know what else? Japan doesn't have a housing crisis. Like the crazy thing, every single Western country has insisted upon instituting of this like engineered housing crisis where the price of houses just goes through the roof because building new ones is restricted and made harder, and buying the old ones requires bank loans, and the banks don't say, oh well, there's no reason for that house price to increase, we won't give you a loan. No, they say, here, have a bigger loan and a bigger loan and a bigger loan and a bigger loan. So the price of houses goes through the roof. And then, see, trains. And then, house prices goes through the roof. Majority of people are homeowners. So the majority of people in Western countries now have their largest asset as their house. And so what are they going to want to do? What are they going to want to do democratically? Are they going to want to make it harder to build houses so that the price remains inflated? They're going to make it make sure that the house price just keeps going up and up and up, because that is just about everybody's retirement plan is their house. So now if you don't own a house, paying for everybody else's time. You're rich. I only bought carry-on luggage. Do you reckon they'd let me take a sword carry on a plane? Probably, right? If I was 12 years old, I'd be so fucking excited right now. Shinobi classes. Holy, bro. Does a Western alcohol shop. That was Linda's fried chicken, and it was like a curry cheese fried chicken burger with chippies and a beer, and that was like 1,500 yen. So like 15 bucks New Zealand. I know that much. I don't know any other currency. Alright, so I'm in a hotel now in Kyoto. It's the Smart Home Inn. And it's just a wee little room, but it's a private room with a private bathroom and a bathtub. And this is about 3,000 yen a night, but that's I've been staying here over the weekday, so it's not a weekend price, it's a weekday price, but 3,000 yen a night, I mean, that's not bad at all. And then I think it's like, I booked 2 more nights for the weekend, so it'll be like 4,500 yen a night, I think, from what I can tell. Maybe 5,000 yen a night. But it's still not that bad for like a private room, bathroom, everything. It's pretty good. So I went to 7-Eleven to buy chicken. You might be saying, why would you go to 7-Eleven to buy chicken when there's so many places in Japan? Partly because I'm lazy. Partly because it's actually really good. Like, and 7-Eleven chicken is solid. I've just got like a whole bunch of clips of just traditional buildings, traditional wooden buildings I filmed while walking around the streets of Kyoto. So I hope you enjoy them. I just wanted to include them because it just shows how like this is the kind of stuff you see when you're walking around Kyoto. I'm currently at what would translate to the Holy Spring Buddhist Temple. There has been a temple on this site since around the time of the formation of, well, effectively since the formation of the Japanese Empire and its first capital here in Kyoto in the 9th century. But I think what's interesting about these temples is that these sites are often very, like, old, right? This one is from the 9th century. It's over 1,000 years old, but the thing about these temples is that because they're mostly built out of wood, they have to treat and change the timbers like very frequently. I think what I read last night was about every 30 years. So while there's been a temple on this site since, you know, the 9th century, because they constantly have to change the wood out and everything, it's like, yes, it's the same temple, but the trees that are inside the temple aren't nearly as old as the site itself. It's kind of like a ship of Theseus of buildings, right? But because the Japanese like to use wood, a lot of the you know, very ancient temples and that are like that, where yeah, there's been the same temple there for 1,000 years continuously, but everything inside the temple is, you know, maybe 100 years old, which is kind of interesting. Well, not everything inside the temple, but all the things used to build the temple are around 100 years old rather than 1,000 years. Right, so I'm just walking around the grounds of Nijo Castle here in Kyoto, Japan. And I think what's kind of interesting about this one is it's quite different to the castle in Osaka, where the Osaka castle was absolutely a military building. It was used primarily for like military defense. But actually, this castle here, Nito Castle, it's much smaller. And the reason why it's much smaller is because it's not really meant to be a massive military installation. It's more like a palace. It's more like a guarded house. It was first commissioned to be built by the shogun of Japan, Tokugawa Ieyasu, but he died before it could be finished, and it took until about 1626 for it to be finished. But it was built during a period of Japanese history where, prior to Tokugawa Ieyasu taking control of Japan, the country was in a pretty violent period. It was in a period of constant war, and it was under Tokugawa Ieyasu that the country was unified, and it would remain that way for another 200 years. The result of the peace that came about after Tokugawa Ieyasu was able to unify Japan was that military buildings became a lot less important. It was much less important to go around building castles and fortifications because nobody was fighting each other anymore. Of course, in those early days of the Tokugawa shogunate, it would have been quite difficult to know that, you know, foresee into the future that there would be no more war for another 250 years, but what you get is less structures like Osaka Castle that was built for that period of, you know, internal strife, internal division and conflict, and you get more buildings like this one, which it's more for making sure that a wealthy person, well, a powerful person, is protected behind, you know, a lot of walls and guards and such. Maybe you don't need to defend yourself from, you know, whole armies anymore, but there's still going to be assassins, and, you know, maybe the peasants get upset at you, maybe the townsfolk get upset at you. You want to be able to hide behind some walls and a moat or two. I love it when historic places are under maintenance. It's always so fun to visit. So I'm now in the sort of inner palace area, which is where the shogun would have resided during the Tokugawa shogunate, also known as Edo period. What's kind of interesting about sort of the history of here in Kyoto is that Kyoto has been the imperial capital for most of Japan's history. It often wasn't the real capital. The emperor was often a figurehead, and political power was held by military governors like the shogun, people who would wield power with sheer military force. But a building like this would have been used to basically keep an eye on the emperor and make sure the imperial house didn't make any moves against the shogunate, because the power of the emperor lay in his religious significance. The emperor is believed to be from an undisputed line that comes all the way down from the gods, and because of that undisputed line from the gods, the emperor has divine authority to rule Japan. Of course, like I said before, that often doesn't mean like that he actually rules Japan or actually holds any political authority, but the image of having consent from the emperor to rule was always very important throughout Japanese history. And so a building like this would have allowed the shogunate basically to keep watch on the emperor here in Kyoto, the official capital city, while the real capital and the real administrative business happened in Edo, which is now Tokyo. So there's actually two palace structures within this castle, right? So there's the one up here, which is the inner palace, and then there's one down here, which is the sort of first palace. And I'm not allowed inside them because I didn't book ahead of time. I didn't realize you needed to book ahead of time, but whatever. But me not being allowed inside them is kind of like what happened historically, where how far you'd be allowed into the castle, where you'd be greeted within the palace, denoted your social rank. So if you're a high-ranking person, you'd go further, deeper into the palace and meet with the emperor. If you're a low-ranking person, they had these structures at the front of the palace to make you feel lesser and lowly. And, you know, they'd include all sorts of rituals, such as bowing to the ground and touching the floor with your hands, and
all kind of stuff like that to make you just reinforce the idea that the emperor or the shogun is a powerful, sacred person, and then, you know, you as a peasant or even a lord or someone less important, you're just lesser than them. You're less of a less of a person, really. And you can see that indicates that I am of lower status because I'm not allowed in there. It's a medieval fire alarm. That's kind of cool. Edo period fire alarms. So it's just inside the former palace of the shogun. You're not allowed to film inside, but it's quite interesting. The whole building is made of wood. So as you walk around, everything like moves and wiggles, and like there's this squeaking sound. So there's a lot of visitors in front of you. There's this like creaking, squeaking sound that's like very ever-present. But what's quite interesting about here is this is where the official restoration of imperial authority happened, where Tokugawa shogun, the 15th Tokugawa shogun, announced to his senior lords that they would be restoring power to the Emperor of Japan. It was the shogunate that ruled and governed Japan for the 260 odd years of the Edo period. So it brought around 260 years of shogun rule to an end, and it also ended the 700-year rule of the samurai over Japan.